One of the biggest complaints about taking an international trip is the inevitable jet lag. After sitting on a plane for hours upon end, you finally arrive at your destination, eager to enjoy the sights. But you find yourself wide awake in the middle of the night and really sleepy during the day. Espresso can help to an extent, but the real problem is jet lag. You're still on your local time zone. The problem gets even worse when you try to go back home and you have to go back to work the next day. Well, you're on your vacation time zone. Thankfully, there's an app that can help with that, and it's called Timeshifter. Today I want to walk you through setting up the Timeshifter app and show you how to use it during your trip so you can minimize the effects of jet lag. This is perfect timing for me because today is September 18th and I've got a trip to Europe coming up next week on the 23rd. So let's dive right in and get started. So if you head on over to the Timeshifter website, timeshifter.com, you'll see that their whole mission statement is around eliminating jet lag. You'll see that it's an app that you can download on the App Store or on Google Play. And if you look at screenshots of the product, you will see that it's a relatively simple user interface. What they're trying to do is tell you when to get light or avoid light, when to get caffeine or avoid caffeine, and when to go to sleep and when not to sleep at various times so you can most efficiently adjust yourself to the destination time zone, and then in reverse when you're coming back to your home time zone. You see that they have this technology that they call practicality filter, which means that it'll adjust to the real world. And actually, Timeshifter has some pretty neat options that adjust to your own schedule. So if you're a night owl, for instance, it will actually put you on a night owl schedule in the destination time zone. Or if you're an early bird, it'll do the same thing in the destination time zone. You can see that they have use cases for business, sports, and vacation, but we're really just going to focus on the business and vacation aspect here. For me, today is Wednesday, September 18th, and my trip to Europe starts next Monday, September 23rd. Now, it's important, if you can, to try to download the app ahead of time and get set up. But it's okay if you're right before your trip or even already into your trip looking to reduce jet lag. You can still download the app during your trip. It'll just be most effective and easiest to set up if you give yourself a few days before your trip to go get everything set up for the trip. So I've already gone ahead and downloaded Timeshifter on my Android phone, and I will open the app. Now, when you open it, you might be prompted with a screen to sign up or sign in, so you'll want to set up an account. And then you should get a page that will give you some instructions on how to time shift, so you'll probably want to read this little blurb and understand what the different icons mean, as they will be very important. And then when you're ready, you can add a trip. Your first trip is free, and after that you'll have to pay a subscription. It's a full round trip for free, so that's pretty good. Now, I am going to go set up my trip to Tbilisi first. When I originally recorded this video back in September, you had to manually enter the flight start and stop times, and you couldn't do multi-city trips, so there were some workarounds you had to do. But it looks like in a very recent update that Timeshifter has addressed all of these problems. You can see that I've actually got a clone of the trip entered in the Timeshifter app now, and it only took like a minute to set this whole thing up. And I want to show you just how easy it is to add flights now. So I'm going to add a flight to San Francisco on the 15th of November. So I just go in and I find the date, and then I type the airline, which is AA, the code, and then the number 594, and it looks like it should find something for me, maybe. Yep, there we go. So it was that simple to add a flight, and if you look at my itinerary, you can see that it's automatically entered down here. So now Timeshifter is much smarter and it's so convenient to set up. So if I click the Tbilisi plan, I see that my time shift will start on September 22nd. So in my case, this is actually only the day before the trip where I really have to do anything. And basically what it's going to try to do is it will let me drink caffeine until 3 p.m. and then it will have me not drink caffeine from 3 to midnight. and then it will basically tell me about my light exposure for 1 hour that day. And then the next day it gets a little bit more complex. It wants me to sleep until 8 a.m. and then get light and caffeine as quickly as possible. Now, I can already foresee an issue here, which is that I live in Philadelphia and I have to travel to New York. So I actually have to get up before 4 a.m. to make it to New York in time for the 11 o'clock flight. So this won't 100% work right off the bat, but that's really okay. What you want to try to do is you don't really have to follow this perfectly. It would be great if you could, but the reality is it's just not going to work 100% right for everyone. So what I would say is just try to stay close enough to it and don't really worry about it when you can't actually follow the guidelines. You can see it lays out when I'm going to be on the flight. So my flight was at 11 a.m. and you can see from the 12 o'clock it's showing the flight there. And then us landing in Qatar the next morning at around 7 o'clock Doha time, and then flying out the next hour. I'm supposed to sleep at the end of my first flight and through the entire second flight. And then I will already start to be adjusting. It's just going to tell me about getting light and caffeine or avoiding caffeine and when to sleep. And it seems like a pretty good night owl schedule for me. Now, speaking of the night owl, there are actually different options for you based on your own preferences. So I have these preferences enabled if I go into settings. The first is the pre-travel adjustment. I want to start adjusting before I even go on the trip. Some of you might want to wait until you get on the trip, but my advice would be to try to adjust before the trip if at all possible. I do drink coffee and tea, so that will be something that I do on this trip. I usually don't use melatonin actually, but it's interesting to see the guideline. If I feel like I can't really sleep, I might go purchase some melatonin from the drugstore, but otherwise I'm not going to worry about it. And you can set your normal sleeping and wake up time. So if you normally go to bed around 12 or 1 a.m. like I do, this would be you could change this to match your own time, and the same for wake up. And I'm a night owl chronotype, but if you're an early bird, you could also select this. Or if you don't think you're either a night owl or an early bird, just select not sure, and it will figure everything out for you. So it's Monday morning and it's around 4 a.m. The sign up there says 4:03 a.m. But I'm looking at my Timeshifter app and it's telling me that I should be asleep for the next 4 hours. So the thing is, we're getting a flight at 11 a.m. But because we live in a different city than the flight's taking off, we actually have to take a train to New York. We live in Philadelphia, so we're going to New York. So the whole waking up at 8 is not going to really work for an 11 a.m. flight. So basically Timeshifter is not always going to be accurate for what you do. The best thing to do is to just go along with your day and then course correct. And I think that because it's currently 4 a.m. in Philadelphia, but in Tbilisi it's already noon, it's fine to drink caffeine, so I've already got my tea with me, and we're just going to go along with it. So it's Wednesday morning. This is our first full day in Georgia, in Tbilisi, and we arrived around noon yesterday after 2 flights that totaled about 16 and a half hours. And over the past couple days, I really haven't slept a lot. I only slept about 3 hours the first night, and then about 1 hour on each plane trip when I was supposed to sleep about 3. So I was pretty beat yesterday afternoon, especially after we had a huge Georgian meal that was just ridiculously heavy. So we ended up taking a nap about 2.5 hours. And hey, focus. It just wants me in the frame and not you. Yeah.
All your technology.
Okay. Too much technology here. All right. Well, it'll just be me then. So we ended up sleeping about 8 hours last night from about 12:30 to about 8 o'clock to 8:30 a.m. and feel pretty good now. We're allowed to drink coffee and get lots of light for most of the day today until 4 p.m. So our first coffee in Georgia is from this place called Milk, or maybe No Milk, I'm not sure. It's at this pretty cool hostel and other things space called Fabrica, and for the price it's very good, so excited for the rest of the day. Today's Sunday, September 29th, and it's been a few days since I've done an update, so here's what's new. On Wednesday I joined my wedding group in Tbilisi for a tour of the city, and we went out for a really nice dinner. There were definitely a couple glasses of wine involved, and I found that my sleep was pretty active that night, as it tends to be with alcohol. Personally, I find that alcohol is not really a good sleep aid for me. But the other thing that I noticed was I had been opening the windows at night because it was relatively cool in the evening, but that specific night, it seemed to have gotten warmer throughout the night, and I woke up sweating. So then I closed the window, turned on the air conditioner, and actually slept well for a few hours, even though I ended up getting up late. But that was really the last day that I had an issue with jet lag. It has been a wedding this weekend, so there definitely have been some late nights and alcohol involved, but I find that I'm mostly adjusted at this point. The days after Wednesday and Thursday, I found that I was going to bed around the normal time that I normally would, and then waking up around the time that I normally would. So I haven't really even been looking at Timeshifter, and I found that that was because I was mostly adjusted. Now, tomorrow, September 30th, I will be going to London, so that is a 3-hour time difference from here, and I suspect the changes won't be too drastic, and it will be relatively easy to adjust to London's time zone. I might not really even have to do much at all. But I'm excited to see what it thinks just for a short 3-hour time change. So talk soon. So it's Saturday, the day we're leaving London, and the past few days I've kind of fallen into this rhythm of not going to bed quite as late as I initially planned to, around 1 a.m. Instead, I ended up going to sleep around 10 p.m., 11 p.m. usually, and just falling into that rhythm. So I did deviate from what Timeshifter wanted me to do, but it ended up being okay because I fell into this pretty simple rhythm. So we're leaving London and going back to Philadelphia today, and it wants me to drink caffeine until 6, but right now it says I should be avoiding light. But we wanted to maximize the last day of the trip, so I am definitely out and about. It's not too bright today. It's a cloudy day, but it's definitely brighter than it would be indoors. So we'll just enjoy it, but I will follow the sleep 2 hours on the plane recommendations, and then I will just go to sleep at around 1 a.m. New York time when we get home. Today's Saturday, October 19th. It's been about 2 weeks since I've come back from the trip, and the first night I got back, I went to bed around 1 a.m. because my trains got in so late. But after that, I had a really hard time going to bed so late, so I actually ended up going to bed at like 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then slowly drifting back more toward a night owl schedule. I'm still not quite there. I'm going to bed more around 11 to 12 right now, which is honestly fine. It's nicer to wake up a little bit early in the morning, but just to know that I didn't fully follow the Timeshifter schedule when I came back, just as I had a hard time fully following it when I was in London. When I was supposed to be adjusted back to the local time zone, Timeshifter asked me to rate my experience, and I think I deserved the moderate jet lag that I had, considering that I followed Timeshifter some of the time, but toward the end I really just kind of went with the flow and didn't really follow Timeshifter's recommendations. So I think that was well deserved. I think what would really make a difference for Timeshifter is if they were able to more dynamically adapt to your sleep schedule, whether it's using something like an Apple Watch to track your sleep cycles, or just asking you every day, like, hey, did you go to bed early or late? How do you feel right now? I think that kind of live update might help Timeshifter work better in the future. But having gone on a number of international trips, I can say that I think Timeshifter does help, even when you don't follow it fully, because I've had some really, really bad jet lag, and this trip had some bad jet lag, but I think it was better than some of the other trips that I've been on. So Timeshifter definitely was a help. Now, this video was in no way sponsored by Timeshifter. I've been paying for the subscription myself for about a year now, but I think it's totally worth it because of the value that it provides. Even though I found that Timeshifter didn't completely eliminate jet lag for me, although that may be somewhat my fault because I wasn't so strict in following it, especially toward the end. But I think that, their heads are in the right places. I love what they're doing. So Timeshifter offers a free one-trip trial, so there's really nothing to lose. If you're going on a trip soon, I would suggest that you download it a few days before the trip and get started because you get that first trip for free. And then after that, you can decide if it's worth paying for or if it's worth just winging it. So if you have a chance to try Timeshifter yourself, I'd love to hear your experience with the product. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.